What it do, everybody? It's your boy King Crowder back again with another lesson or a new edition of history you may not know or things that are not taught in detail for sure. Today's lesson will be focusing on the great legacy and impact of the great Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was born in Chicago, April 30th, 1948, and sadly, he was deceased December 4th, 1964. Fred Hampton was the youngest out of Francis and Ida Hampton. Born and raised in Chicago with brothers and sisters. Among his family, what inspired him early on to have an activist thinking and ideology was the death of Emmett Till. Most people don't know that he was related and had acquaintances work with his family. So he had a personal dealing with how the Emmett Till tragedy began to happen. What catapulted Chairman Fred, what he's better known as, to really get politically active is that he was working with young kids around his local neighborhood in the Chi. And when he was working with those young kids, they had a pool that was near them, literally 2 miles away. That pool that was near them was a whites only pool. Think about this for a second. So I'm Fred Hampton, I'm bringing kids around. I want y'all to be active in the community. And we have a local pool that we can't even attend. We had to go literally 6 miles away to find an integrated pool system where the young black kids around that area could swim in. Fred Hampton brought this issue and problem to the NAACP, and as the NAACP are currently, they were laxed and saying we got a proper protocol we must go through. Chairman Fred knew that this process was going to take too long. Chairman Fred said, hey man, y'all are not moving it the way we need to. I understand the MLK ideology post MLK's death, but that is not working right now. We need more of a stronger uphold system to happen because these things should not be happening. That is what sparked Chairman Fred to participate inside of the Black Panther Party. Most people don't know that Chairman Fred became a huge advocate for the Black Panther Party because the Black Panthers were huge into police accountability and self-discipline themselves. In Chicago, police brutality was awful. Let's go on and say it now. They were hitting, attacking, beating black citizens like crazy. Chairman Fred thought that, man, we cannot continue to let this happen. We got to protect and serve ourselves. And if you do know from the previous video, the Black Panther Party chose to idolize themselves in a different way. That means you had to learn a martial arts discipline. You had to have gun safety and gun protocol. That is what attracted Chairman Fred early on. Post the deaths of the MLK and Malcolm X, you really began to see Chairman Fred catapult, and you really began to see his movement and his thumbprint on Chicago, which was a heavily, constructed and civilized district. I can say Chicago was very structured at that time. So what Chairman Fred's biggest ideology was, y'all got to understand, his politically, he was a rock star. He was the one that was teaching people, hey, we need political revolutionary. I am a revolutionary was his quotes. He also taught that politics is war without violence, which is absolutely true. He taught the benefits of voting to compare things. He knew that if we needed something, group voting ideology was necessary. Now, the Black Panther Party already had the foundations of the clinics, the guns, and the breakfast programs. Implementing those things in Chicago made Chairman Fred huge. The police at the time began to target Chairman Fred because they knew he had a lot of power. Let's be frank. It was a racial government at the time. White supremacy was very strong. He was targeted by the FBI more than necessary. He was targeted, shot at, and basically beat down. All this we got to encapsulate. Remember, Chairman Fred was only at the age of under 25 years old. A young guy leading a whole community or organization in Chicago, better clean up the organization. Chairman Fred's final and most courageous act he was doing was called the Rainbow Coalition. The irony of the Rainbow Coalition that most people don't know, the LBGT flag was the flag of the Rainbow Coalition. The Rainbow Coalition's huge ideological differences was it wanted to unite everyone, no matter your ethnicity or ideology. So the Latin Kings, the poor whites, all came to the forefront that we must fix this community of Chicago for each other. Chairman Fred was literally pulling everyone, no matter how you felt, how you thought, or what your imaginary was, to bring things together. Chairman Fred was a rock star of his time. he became a problem because you cannot control someone who can unite, feed, and protect himself. Chairman Fred became such a huge deal and such a huge issue at the time that literally problems began to arise based on what he was doing within the community. Chairman Fred final words of wisdom was to the people he was speaking to at the time was, if you want political activism, you must be engaged and actively promoted inside of the process. Chairman Fred's demise came later on as he was going through the program when the FBI made a 14 no-knock warrant, as we hear at the time, go to a place where Chairman Fred was sleeping. At the time, if you do not know the backstory behind it, an FBI agent poisoned Chairman Fred, basically making him unconscious where he couldn't defend or run for himself. He was sleeping in an apartment when 14 off-duty or unknown Chicago police officers assassinated him. They murdered him in cold blood while he was asleep. I'm talking about bullets to the head and face. We must understand that this created a huge, massive uproar in Chicago at the time. It was a huge program that we could not control and could not stop. And it was all for the fear of how powerful Fred Hampton was. You must understand that the great Fred Hampton was beyond his time. He was a rock star of his campaign, and he thought and changed the world differently. It's important to talk about the untold stories of this young man and what he accomplished in such a short period of time. And since his happening in Chicago, Chicago has been a violent and untold city ever since. It's not an irony. If you look at the history, you can see where it's going and what were the causes of it. Hey, it's your boy King Crowder checking back out again with another edition of the great Fred Hampton and his untold story. Please comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. Hopefully you learned something today. That's the whole point of me teaching these messages and breaking down these videos. Peace.